Test. Recording in process must be our cue. So we'll go ahead and start. Do you have the agenda? You do. I was going to pull it up digitally, but thank you. Great. I'll go ahead and call to order this meeting, this quarterly meeting of the Workforce Development Council here in Casper. Welcome to Casper, everyone. Jennifer, would you mind starting us off with the roll call? Excuse me? We should absolutely do the Pledge of Allegiance. So we have the U.S. flag right behind me. If we could go ahead and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. Jennifer, roll call, please.
Governor Mark Gordon or designee.
Present.
Senator Fred Baldwin. Representative Ryan Berger.
Here.
Jim Engel.
Present.
Ron Wild. Tony Cross. Dick Smith. Vice Chair Eric Trowbridge.
Here.
Larry Fodor.
Present.
Michael Kircher. Bria Hammock.
Present.
Chair Fabian Librera.
Present.
Tina Conley.
Present.
Mark Madsen. Nathan Williams. Philip Cornella. Brenda Morgan. Tiffany Marshall. Danny Bureau.
Present.
Charles Wilson.
Here.
Tammy Johnson.
Here.
Director Robin Cooley.
Present.
Commissioner Robert Short. Nikki Harper. Mayor Matt Hall.
Here.
Superintendent Degenfelder or designee.
Present.
Josh Jarrell or designee.
Ron Goldberg here.
Corinne Schmidt or designee. Dr. Sandra Caldwell or designee. Katie Hogarty.
Present.
Travis Lawrence. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Great, great. Thank you very much, Jennifer. We'll go ahead and start with the approval of the agenda that's been emailed around. I'm told and informed that all of the meeting materials are located online on our website for the Workforce Development Council. But you should have received an email which has a link to a Google Drive folder that has all the meeting materials that we'll have as well as the agenda. So would welcome a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Great, thank you, Tammy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Great, we'll roll with the agenda as stated. Also, the September meeting minutes, for which I unfortunately wasn't present, but those minutes have been emailed around. I would also welcome a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Thank you, Danny.
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All in favor of approving the minutes as documented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Great, thank you. We'll welcome those into record. Very briefly, I'll just provide a little message from the chairman once I unlock my iPad. Do want to welcome Governor's designee, Sarah DiRenzio, from the Governor's office. Thank you very much for attending with us. And as well, I guess we'll have Tiffany joining us shortly, hopefully. I don't know if you've received an update, Jennifer? No? Okay. Well, we'll welcome her as a new member to our council. She's Executive Director for the Sweetwater County Hospital. That's exciting. If you haven't logged in already, we do have a Wi-Fi access code. We've got Wi-Fi, I think it's the guest, YOGov guest, and we do have a Wi-Fi code for that, which is 11 Muddy Creek, the number 11 Muddy Creek with capital M, capital C. We'll flash that back up here shortly, but you can feel free to use that Wi-Fi. Couple housekeeping items tonight. Hope you'll be able to join us. We're going to be departing at probably about 4 here to get to 4:15. We've got a tour of Wild Gear, which is out near the airport here in Casper. So looking forward to that business tour. Typically, when we come to a location, we like to visit with industry partners. So Wild Gear is a business here in the community that is involved with bringing on workforce. Love to hear from them, what their challenges, what's working for them, as well as learn a little bit about their operation. We'll be then going to dinner tonight at Fire Rock at 6 p.m. Hope you're joining us. Unlike some of the past board meetings, we will not have transportation. Most everybody here has a car. If not, jump in with somebody that does. But we'll be at Fire Rock for a wonderful dinner at 6 p.m. That's on the east side of town. And tonight, most of us, I think anybody who's staying here from outside of the community will be staying at the Best Western, AKA previously the Parkway Plaza, which I understand has been fully remodeled. So I do want to show or state one thing. We did have, gosh, this was formed, and I'm not even sure when this was. This is maybe 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years ago. But there were some original founders that were a part of this council that formed something called the Innovations Foundation. Jim Engel is here today, one of the founding members, if not the primary founding member. We had Keith Zapka, a previous council member, Leonard Scolari in the banking industry, also a past member of the council, formed what was called the Innovations Foundation. It was privately funded by those 3 gentlemen as well as others. Am I missing anybody, Jim?
There were some other contributors to the foundation as well.
There were, okay. So today we made the decision, sadly, to bring that one to a close. The Innovations Foundation was operational for a number of years, but with the changes in some of the laws over to WIOA, some of the original purposes and intentions for starting that foundation became somewhat obsolete. So we dissolved that today. There's some money left over in that account, and in consulting with Jim as one of the primary members and one of the big contributors into that fund, those funds will be used to purchase some swag for the one-stops and for the department as they attend trade shows and fairs, job fairs. So I do want to recognize, in their absence, Leonard and Keith and other founding members, and specifically Jim, for their contributions to that Innovations Foundation. Jennifer, any other housekeeping items? There are restrooms located just outside here in this beautiful building. Is there anything else that we need to touch on before we move on to the director's update? No? All right. Well, thank you. Without further ado, then we'll push it over to Director Cooley to provide a Department of Workforce Services update.
Thank you, Chairman. I have quite a bit here today, so I hope I don't go over on my time, but there's a lot that's been going on in our agency, but a lot of really neat ideas that are coming our way that I'd like to also give you an update on and kind of give you a general understanding of for consideration perhaps by the council at a later time. As you know, the strategic planning group got together and came up with one of the goals is to develop a sustainable, high-quality workforce for the 21st century. And the things that I want to talk about now are really in line with that particular goal, strategic goal of the council. First, I would like to give you a budget update and where we're at with that, what we think is going on as it relates to the council. The agency did have its budget meeting with the governor We felt it went very well. For the first time ever, we are asking for general fund monies, not the first time ever, but for the first time in a number of years, we have asked for general fund monies from the legislature for an appropriation. A lot of that has to do, of course, with several years ago when we were asked to cut our budgets. The way we did it was we had employees that were paid by partially or fully with general fund monies. What we recognized is that the work they were doing could be paid for through federal funds that we had. So we switched over some of those employees to be paid with federal funds that allowed us to give back general funds in those cuts. But what it's done is it's really hampered our abilities now to move forward with some of the initiatives that we want to do. And it's cut into the federal funds that we have maybe for other things, services for some clients, for instance. So a lot of what we did was ask for a clawback of some of those cuts that we actually made with general fund monies. But also another thing that we really were a little uncomfortable doing is we asked for 15 positions. And I want to explain why we did that. We are being asked to do more and more and more, as a lot of state agencies are, to do more and more with the same number of people, with the same number of abilities, with the same resources. We've done that, I think, up to this point very successfully. But what we're looking at now is even more that we're being asked to do because we've got so many, we've got federal funds coming into the state in record numbers and projects coming into the state in record numbers. And we're really at the point where we're tapped out in terms of the ability to really help make those projects successful. So we went in and asked for additional positions because if we're going to be asked to do additional work for some of these projects, we're just bottom line going to need to have additional staff to be able to do some of that work. So it's either a situation where we say now this is all we can do. We can't do more. But if you want us to do more, this is what we need. And that's really the position we're in, I think, across the state in our workforce centers, in all of our different programs that we implement around the state. So that was something new, and I wanted you to know that's out there. And of course, we're still waiting to hear from the governor on this. I know the governor got a lot of requests for funding. Not all of those funding requests are going to be approved through the governor, and certainly not all of them when we get to the legislature. But I wanted to let you know that that's kind of the situation we're in and where we're at right now with that. For employment and training, which is a big part of what you all do, we did go ask, again, for the clawback of the general fund monies. Another reason for that is we are seeing either declining or flat federal funds. Along with that scenario, we are also having an increase in service costs. Whatever it is we're providing, we've seen in some areas those service costs are going up 50%, for instance. We're seeing tuition costs that we're helping individuals pay for, that our tuition costs are increasing. Costs for some of their services, some of the other, I don't want to say, the boots they might need, the steel-toed boots they might need to go into a job that we help them pay for. Those costs are all going up. And of course, inflation and then compensation increases are going up as well. So this is to try to counter that and to account for that with some of those clawback funds that we're hoping to get. But I also wanted to let you know with the Workforce Development Training Fund, which is a huge fund in terms of training, internships, apprenticeships, building business across the state, and even bringing business in. We've asked for additional funds for those programs, general fund monies for those programs, just because of the success of those programs. And I think we've got our group here, our team here, that's going to speak to some of those numbers and speak to what we're doing in that area. But I also want to let you know that we're working with Joint Appropriation Committee on that for other ways to increase the funding in those areas, which may be taking the pool of taking the investment pool that we use for those funds and putting it into a different pool that might be a little bit riskier pool, but the return, of course, is going to be that much better. So that's a discussion we're having with the JAC right now, and it's a creative way, I think, that the team has come up with in order for us to, if we don't get the general funds, maybe we can look for it to come in other areas. So we're looking at a lot of different ways that we might be able to increase the ability to really ramp up some of those training fund dollars for those successful programs. On another topic, I recently had the absolute pleasure to spend a week in Taiwan. And the purpose of the trip was to go to Taiwan to really share ideas on best practices in workforce development and get ideas exchange ideas between each other around workforce development. And I will tell you, I came away from that experience recognizing that we are behind the ball. Some of the things that they are doing in that country are incredible in terms of workforce training and development of industrial parks where they have workforce training going on in those parks. But R&D where they, we'll get an industrial park ready and we have businesses and we want businesses to come in. What Taiwan does is they come in, they build this beautiful industrial park. They're looking at not only getting a lease from the company that comes in to put their industrial park, their business there, but they're also getting like 0.097% of the profits from that. So there's money coming back so they can continually put that money back into some of these parks and back into the development of those businesses and into the development of that workforce. But I also had the pleasure of going to several of these training entities. It was the highlight of the trip. I went to a bakery training facility. It's a union training facility. They've got a number of these bakery unions around. This one was in Taipei, but they've got them all over Taiwan. And you walk into the building, and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is a bakery building," because they don't pay attention a lot to the outsides of their buildings. It's you walk into a tiny little building and you get into this tiny little elevator that can only take so many people up, and you go up into, but then you walk into this state-of-the-art training facility where they have the big screens here where they can transfer, so you can see what the trainer is doing, but then they can put it up on the screen up top so you can look down and see what is being mixed and what she's doing there on the table with rolling out the dough and that. And we got to actually make both their pineapple cakes and their moon pies. And I've got some here that I'm going to set out, and I'd like you all to try them. They sent us back with these, and I really want you to try them because they are remarkable. And they're not the ones that we made, so trust me, they're going to be good, and they're very delicious. But they will train individuals, train their workforce over the course of an 8 or 10, I want to say, we asked the question, and I don't think I wrote it down, an 8-course class that will go on for a time period of about 8 months. It's subsidized through both the government and the union, and it's rigorous. I will tell you from going through just one class, it's a rigorous class. You walk into the test, and what they told us is you'll learn in the classes about 10 different bakery pieces, pastries that you can make. But you walk into the class and you pull out of a hat, essentially out of a hat, 2 different things that you're going to make. So you don't ever know what it is that you're going to make when you walk in for that test. And you have to make that one item. So you might be really good at a pineapple cake, but you're going to be asked to make a moon cake. And so you have to have proficiency in all of these. When they're done with that, what they do is they have these individuals get certifications. And they're able to go out into the communities with these certifications. They can walk into a bakery and get a very good job, or they can open up their own business and their own bakery business with this certification. They told us about an individual there in Taipei that is so successful and so well known with the bakery business that he or she, I don't know who it was, does it out of a food truck, takes all of the orders online. And then they said, you'll go to some street corner in Taipei and there's this whole long line of people waiting there, and you have no idea what they're waiting for because there's nothing really there that they would be lining up for. And then you realize, because here comes the food truck, and they're there to pick up their orders from the food truck. And it's just a really successful way for them to, and with low overhead, because all they've got is their food truck. So they were just, this union that does it, they have about a 90% success rate on the testing. But again, there's unions all over the city that do this for this bakery company. But then another one we went to was just an incredible success story. The business started with subsidization from the government. And what it is it's a vocational rehabilitation training center for victims of polio. Again, you walk into this building and you just wonder, what the heck could be on sale here? And they took us through, they had us make our own keychains out of leather. And they are the cutest, neatest little things that they make. But then they showed us some of they make these beautiful purses and pocketbooks and book covers, and just anything you can think of that they can make with leather, they do. Subsidized originally from the government, but they are now fully funded because they've done so well with their company, and they are selling their leather goods globally. That's how impressive their company is. And some of their little keychains and some of the things they do, they're remarkable. I've never seen anything like them. But another success story, right? Another one that we had the pleasure of, I think I want to say the pleasure of going to, it was they have a very vigorous massage training program. And they took us to a place, all of us got a neck massage and a foot massage. And I'm telling you, it's not the spa massage that you go to here in the United States. It is actual rehabilitative massage that is painful. But every one of us walked out of there just marveling at, they zeroed in on where, like my neck is the problem. They zeroed right in on that. And the work that they did on it, I mean, they really know what to do. They're taught, it's more something you would get at a chiropractor, a massage you'd get at a chiropractor. And it was just marvelous. And the person that gave me my massage was blind. So it's just a wonderful career, again, for an individual that maybe otherwise might not have a career. So just, I have a lot more information to provide you, and I'm happy to share that with you. Outside of this, we don't have a lot of time now, but just the exchange of information with them was incredible. We used to actually have an exchange program through the UW with Taiwanese individuals coming out of high school, coming out of university, that had graduated university. It was a one-year program. They could go to the University of Wyoming for 1 year and get their master's. We stopped that in 2018, 2019, but our liaison that was going through the trip with us told us that she was going to go through it, but she got accepted at another college. So she went elsewhere, but she said 5 of the people that were in her group did go to UW, and they are now actually higher up in the government than she is and doing very well. So we have some really fairly high up individuals over there that have been educated with their master's degree at the University of Wyoming. And it was such a great exchange of information. When we went to their science industry park that I was telling you about earlier, if we can somehow connect again with them through that science park and what they're doing in those science parks, maybe have exchanges of students across the globe with them, with some of the R&D that they're doing in those science parks. I think it would be a marvelous thing for Wyoming, because a lot of what they're doing relates to climate, whether it's carbon capture, it's, whatever it is. That's the area that they're working on in this one park that we went to. They've got several of them across the island, but it was pretty remarkable. So again, I'm happy to talk to you about it more, but what they are doing is we could take a page from their book and learn a lot. And I think that, quite frankly, in the United States and in Wyoming, we need to step up our game if we're going to keep up. And that's every single person that was on the trip with me. It was Oregon, Missouri, Arkansas, Alabama, and then we had 2 federal partners there too. Every person felt the same way. So lots to learn from them there.
Who would have ever thought Taiwan would be ahead of us?
That's exactly right.
It's just,
But I'm telling you, they are doing some remarkable things there that we could learn a lot from. I also got to meet, the Business Council actually has a state employee there that works in their trade relations office. I got to meet with Chester Chu there, and he told me about some of the work that they're doing for import and export with Wyoming to get some of our products here in Wyoming for sale there in Taiwan and vice versa. And it's remarkable. And I've got to talk to you. He's got some great ideas. I mean, he's an idea guy. And he was just talking to me about all of these things that he's thinking we need to be doing. So that was a pretty neat connection there too. So thank you, Ron, for that connection. So one last thing. I had the privilege of getting into a meeting, and this was thank you to Cindy Barlow with Wyotech. She had the opportunity to talk with this group called Be Pro, Be Proud. And I know they've talked to the Department of Education, Dr. Aldrich, about this too. I got into a meeting with the executive director of this program and came away just absolutely convinced this is a program, to whatever degree we can do it in Wyoming, we need to get it in Wyoming. And it's pricey. It's going to take an effort from the council, from industry, from government. It's going to take a village to make this happen. But it is, and I've set out a couple of their brochures there in front of you. What they're doing is absolutely remarkable in the state of Arkansas. And I know the state workforce director there, and I did not get a chance to call her before I came here, but I can tell you they started with a pilot there in Arkansas in 3 different schools, I think is what he said. And the word got out, and they had the other schools asking to get this, and it's a mobile simulator. It's a mobile workshop essentially. And I know we've talked to you all about getting a mobile workshop that we can send around the state. This might be the best way to do that. It's a mobile workshop, and the way he's described it is he said, you'll have high school students, you come park in their parking lot, and you have high schools, students, they come out and yeah, they're kind of interested, and it gets them out of class. And they come out and they're on their phones and they're not talking to anybody else, but they're on their phones, nose in the phone. And they walk in and they start using the simulations. And whether it's driving a locomotive, it's doing CDL training, it's looking at welding and doing actual hands-on simulation of welding or whatever the case might be. He says they walk out of the other end and their excitement is palpable, and they're talking to each other and they're talking about how cool that simulation was. And, that's all well and good, that would be cool. I would find that very cool. But the difference between this program and others is they don't just drop it there. They then will contact the student and the parents, find out where their actual interest is in those particular areas, and then they connect them to a business that will talk to them, an industry that's a partner with them, talk to them about the industry, talk to them about training, what they need, what training's available in that area, what they could look for in terms of income, making this a career. I mean, there is a whole follow-up kind of process that this group goes through, which to me makes it different than just having a cool simulator that you get to go in and see something really neat. It really follows the process with them and shows them how they then put that into action if that's an area that they want to be involved in. And I pulled up on one of their resources, here's just a few of the things that they have in these simulators. And the impression I got from this individual was if it's a concierge service, if we have particular trainings we want to put into this mobile lab, they will work with us to make that happen. But here are some of the ones that they've got in there now. It might be carpentry. It might be computer numerical control operators, CNC operators, diesel technology, electrician, heavy equipment operator, HVAC tech, locomotive engineer, overhead lineman, plumbing, robotics, truck drivers, welders. My thought is we know what, or we're getting a very good sense of the businesses coming into the state of Wyoming. If we can narrow in our focus on what the greatest need is going to be around the state, and we know manufacturing's huge. If we can narrow in on some of those manufacturing jobs and what they will need, something like this where we start doing that and sending that around the state. Cindy Barlow even talked about, if you take this to a UW game, sit it out in the parking lot, you got all kinds of kids there that are going to be running through that, and they're going to be spreading this all over the state and how cool this was. You'll be getting requests from high schools all over the state for this. So it's something I would like the council to explore. And I've got an opportunity, if there's somebody on the council that is interested, this group will be in New Mexico speaking to their Chamber of Commerce there. Talking about it, they will have one of the mobile workshops there. If we could I'd like to send one of my folks there too. If we could send maybe a couple council members down there to actually walk through it. I mean, it's a big order, but if we actually see it in person and decide it's something that maybe Wyoming needs, and Cindy Barlow with WyoTech is convinced this is what we need. And I'll tell you, after talking to him, I'm a believer too. Maybe then we can start talking about ways to make it happen. So be thinking about that. I've got all the information for the trip if you want to take it. I can't express enough. The executive director was the humblest individual, but he knew what he was talking about. He's a believer, and he's gonna make it happen wherever they want it to happen. So think about it and let me know if you're interested.
Director Cooley, to segue a little bit on that, I know that Hitachi and Arnold Machinery and Gillette have a trailer that has a simulator in it, coal mine industry, haul truck, drag line, anything to do with coal mining. And Japan actually developed it for the Powder Basin, and they go around to the high schools and the games and all that. And they've seen a huge increase of interested individuals that want to go through training to work at a coal mine when they graduate.
Awesome.
And I've done it.
I think
it is
it's what it takes.
I ran a haul truck off a high wall and thought I was going to die, but then I jumped out of the seat like, okay, I'm not doing that. But yeah, it's an amazing hands-on, and it gives them experience of what direction they maybe want to go, career pathways.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, Tammy.
thank you. Thank you, Director Cooley. That's just fascinating. I think this is a great opportunity also to take a look at the basket of goods and working with the Department of Ed and the State Board of Education and talk about, when you said kids come out of class, I kind of cringed as being an old high school teacher, but at the same time, I know that's a captive audience, but maybe it's time for us to talk about some kind of requirements in high schools that deal with workforce, with career development. I know that it's tangential now, but it's not in the basket of goods. And so, and then something like this fits into the school day neatly and doesn't cut into any one academic area's time, but it's that might facilitate it even more. So anyway, that's really exciting.
Thank you, Tammy. Yeah, no, I think we've agreed as a council and in discussions with industry partners that exposure at the K through 12 level to career paths, to what we have in our state is invaluable. And we probably, I don't think we could ever do enough of that. And so if there's an opportunity to make that mobile and kind of a focused attempt, I think that's wonderful. So yeah, no, I think the council supports looking into that further and seeing if we can get somebody down to New Mexico to represent us and to potentially learn a little bit more. I think that's great. Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you had as part of your update? No? Thank you very much. That's a great update. And did you learn anything about neck massage when you were in Taiwan? Like, do you feel confident that we should start a line at the door here during the break? Did you like to?
That'll be at dinner tonight.
Oh, dinner. It's dinner. All right. This is being recorded, Jim.
I'm telling you, you can barely walk out, but afterwards you really feel good.
No, it sounds great. That's great. Very cool. Excellent. Well, good. So we will move to the workforce programs update with our workforce programs administrator. Did I say the title right? Holly is always awesome, always fun to listen to, and looking forward to this update. So Holly Simoni.
Chairman, if we could, just for a minute, to take care of a little bit of housekeeping on the foundation. I think it needs to be a board vote because it was actually board approval when we started the foundation.
Okay.
To be able to meet the IRS codes to dissolve that. So
Very
I'll
good.
make a motion that we dissolve the workforce foundation as required by the Internal Revenue Service.
Appreciate your diligence on that. Yeah, thank you very much, and would welcome a second for that.
Larry, second.
Thank you, Larry. You were at a couple tables over, and you probably overheard our conversation, so you are qualified, more than qualified to provide that second. Great. Then all those in favor of dissolving the Innovations Foundation, say aye, please.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? Thank you very much, Jim. That motion passes. Great. Holly, floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everyone hear okay?
Ken, thank you.
All right. I've got a quick PowerPoint that I thought I would just go through. Thank you all for having me today. I'm the Workforce Program Administrator, so I oversee 4 divisions in DWS, and just grateful to have so many dedicated and talented staff behind me that work for DWS. Several of them are going to present more in detail about some of our programs, but I just wanted to give you some high-level initiatives and new programs that we're doing. Thank you. So communicating and collaborating with our partners and stakeholders is really important to us. Within our mission, we talk about collaborating to support a thriving workforce and economy, and leading workforce innovation and investing in employee development today for a stronger tomorrow. So we're grateful to partner and collaborate with many of you and our stakeholders out there. We're just going to look at a few things that are on the horizon for workforce programs, and many of our grants and programs within workforce programs serve the job seekers and employers that walk into our workforce centers. Our agency is exceptionally good at utilizing all the resources to serve citizens of Wyoming. And these staff work as a team to really maximize those services that help our job seekers and our employers. Thanks, Jennifer. So the first one I wanted to make you aware of, if you haven't heard about it yet, is our Y Health Train. That's an ARPA funded initiative. Applications open November 1st. The grant focuses really on increasing the number of students enrolled in the healthcare programs at our Wyoming colleges, and we want to increase those students that are getting that 2-year degree in healthcare. We know that there's a huge need in Wyoming and really across the nation for that. Initial funding is reserved for those who are newly enrolled in an eligible healthcare program, and preference is being given to our nurse pathway or our behavioral health pathway. So any of those certifications or degrees along that healthcare career path. With the ARPA funding, there's a little bit of criteria that people need to meet. So you either need to be at that 300% of the poverty level, or unemployed or underemployed during COVID. And that time frame is March 13th of 2020 through May 11th of 2023. So we're accepting applications now for the spring 24 start. A student can receive up to $10,000 for tuition, books, and supplies. And then there'll be another application window for fall of 2024. And an ask for you all is that you share far and wide, if you haven't already, We've done a lot of mailings and touch base with all the colleges, with all our healthcare entities, but really appreciate you sharing that with all of your contacts as well. Also on the horizon for the Business Training and Support Unit, which is these three ladies over here and their staff. We are working with the governor's office and community colleges and EMS and medical folks to also do an EMS and paramedic training grant. That's in the works right now. It's not finalized, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. That will be $2,500 if you're looking at doing EMS training, or up to $12,000 for the paramedic program. There's a huge need, as you know, in that field as well, and it's really difficult to recruit and get folks trained. So excited about that, not quite finalized, but coming soon. Also, the Business Training and Support Unit is working very diligently on a new grant management system. Right now, these amazing folks track everything manually on a spreadsheet, and it's a lot of manual work. So we're going to be grateful for that new system, and that will just streamline and help us be a little bit more efficient there. And then if you check out our website, especially on the Business Training and Support Unit tab, they do live Q&A sessions quite frequently. Is it once a week or so? Once a month, thank you. And they allow Q&A sessions live and can answer any questions on our grants, give you program updates and application timeframes.
Please, Tammy, thank you.
Holly, what's the difference between EMS and paramedic? I was struck by the difference in the grant amount. So what is the difference between those? I just don't know.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Johnson, there is a difference in training. Emergency medical technician is the EMS training portion, and it's a faster, quicker kind of emergency medical tech program. And then paramedic is more involved, and I believe it's up to 3 years. Anyone correct me if I'm wrong for paramedic? 2, okay, thank you, 2 years, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Do we have those programs in Wyoming? We do, yes, we do. We've met with the community colleges along with Jen Davis in the governor's office and got detailed information about those programs around the state and where folks can apply for those. Thank you. You are very welcome. Okay. Also wanted to let you know about the digital wallet. This is a WIP initiative, and we are partnering with Department of Ed on that. Department of Ed is doing the micro-credentialing piece, and we are working on the digital wallet piece. So it is a place where you can store all your credentials, whether that's an educational degree or a micro-credential or a certification. And we're also looking at expanding that to workforce skills as well. And so if you say register in Wyoming at Work and put your resume in there, you can also have a digital wallet with all your credentials in that as well. So we've seen that in some other states. And with industry buy-in, it really helps everyone understand, okay, this is a vetted credential, this is what this means, and we're good to go. So it speeds up kind of the hiring process and helps people understand the credentials that you do have as well. Very excited about that, just working on the RFP for that initially, so it is a year or so out.
And Holly,
Yes.
what is the RFP? What is it for? Is that,
Thank you.
yeah.
Request for proposals.
No, I'm sorry. Now I know what an RFP is, but what is the RFP for in terms of the initiative itself? Like, what part is it funding? Is it the actual creation of software, or is it administering it?
Yeah, so there'll be 2 RFPs with the digital wallet on the workforce side. One will be for a project manager, and the other one will be for that software piece. And we've been in talks with University of Wyoming. They would really like us to look at kind of a blockchain model as well. And so we're trying to partner with them and see what kind of response we get on that software.
So then the Department of Workforce Services, in effect, would house this initiative?
That is correct.
That's exciting.
We're hoping down the road we could have it built within our new MIS system as well. So get on Wyoming at Work, upload your resume, have your digital wallet right there. It's all kind of integrated.
Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we have a question. Yes, Dr. Aldrich?
Curious as to whether there will be an input process as you're developing the RFP. I know you mentioned the blockchain encryption, which is a concern, I think, by the university. There's some concerns about the term validating credentials. And so will that group of individuals, if they're agencies, have an opportunity to be involved in the RFP creation, because that will really drive the project once it goes out there.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Aldrich, yes, we're working on a very loose draft right now, and then we'll get together with stakeholders and make sure we have some good feedback along the way. Yeah, of course.
If you can combine it with YDOT's effort to make a digital driver's license, I'm in.
That would be awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's see where we're at. So next, we have our ARPA pre-apprenticeship grant. And I know that Ivy's going to speak to that a little bit more tomorrow, correct? Okay. So that can provide a completion award of up to $1,500 per student and up to $1,000 per participating student for support services that are aligned with WIOA as well. And then I think most exciting is a modern apprenticeship hub. And I know Ivy and team have really been working hard on getting that vetted and launched. And that will launch next week during National Apprenticeship Week. So excited about that. That's really to look at bridging that gap between our youth and state government and education, and just making sure they understand all the options out there post-high school. So very excited about that. And our next slide is a tiny little sneak peek of the apprenticeship hub. So Ivy's got a lot more information on that. Very excited about the look of it and how user-friendly it is, and that it really speaks to the youth and kind of what they're able to search on there. Okay, next is, we're switching gears and looking at vocational rehabilitation. They were just awarded a $10 million Disability Innovation Fund grant. I believe Director Cooley's mentioned that before. It was a competitive grant. That $10 million stretches over 5 years, and it's really to expand mental health services for people with disabilities, especially that youth population. And I wanted to introduce to you, if I can, Brian Hickman. He's back here in the back. Please stand. I'm going to embarrass you. He's our deputy administrator in vocational rehabilitation, and he's over field services. So he's sitting in today, and he is the project manager of the DIF grant, knows all about that. So if you have additional questions, let me know. But it was a very competitive grant, something they worked very hard on, and they can see ages. Thank you very much. Yeah. We've never served in voc rehab that young of a population before, but we know that if we can tap into them and help them with mental health and support services, get them excited about some careers, we can really make a huge impact. And it aligns with the governor's initiative on mental health as well. So excited about that. There's some mentorship, career and life skills in that grant as well, and it's a statewide initiative. Okay, then we've got our reemployment services and eligibility assessment. You've heard me talk about that before, but that's really getting some steam, and we're making a lot of progress on that. We were recently awarded an additional $88,000, and it is a partnership between unemployment insurance and our workforce centers. So the goal is to really tap into and connect with a person who's on unemployment quickly. Get them excited about the workforce, the jobs, how we can help, resumes, all those kinds of things. So it's a great collaboration, and I have Shelby Cunningham here. Please stand also. And she is our RESEA program manager and doing a great job on that program as well. So thanks for being here, Shelby. And then last slide is again about unemployment insurance grants. We have 3 grants that continually focus on improving our operating system, making it mobile friendly, using plain language so that it's easy to understand and digest, It makes things a little bit simpler, makes our screens easier to navigate. We're looking at translating everything into Spanish as well, because that's our number one other language in Wyoming. We want to make that user experience very simple and the workflow easy to understand as well, and focus on fraud and integrity. We have been doing we've got some feedback from the workforce centers during the pandemic. We also just finished some focus groups in Casper and Cheyenne, people who knew nothing about UI, who came in, and we asked them a lot of questions about our verbiage, and most of the time it was like, what the heck are you talking about? So we want to make that a lot easier for folks to understand what we're asking of them, what they're applying for, what they need to provide to us to stay in compliance. Because if they're not, then we sometimes look at them as, is this a fraudulent claim? Or are you going into overpayment or underpayment? And it's just a lot of stress for folks. So we want to be very clear about that. And I also want to introduce you to Chris Funk. Please stand. She's our UI administrator here in Casper and oversees all the UI functions and has just done an amazing job on these 3 grants and keeping them moving forward. Was also in charge of the focus groups and got all that together with an outside company called Guidehouse. So thanks for all you do, Chris. And she can answer any questions on any of this if you have additional questions as well. And I think that is it for me.
Great, thank you very much. I'll open up the questions if you don't mind, Holly. And this may be a better put to Christina as it relates to the one-stops, but you brought it up in terms of the programs that we're creating to potentially serve people around the state in a more remote type capacity. And so are we starting to track numbers around that? Are we starting to understand how many people we are able to serve that don't have to necessarily physically come to one of the one-stops?
Yeah, excellent question. I would turn to Christina to answer that. If you want to join me, you can, but I know that.
Christina, you're next anyway, so come on over. We've got 2 microphones and one of them looks lonely.
I know that we have several programs, such as our reentry program and our WIN initiative and different things like that, that we are serving across the state, and especially our RESEA program that we just talked about as well. And Christina and staff have done an amazing job of, when we need to, serving those folks virtually.
Push it and hold it.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, yes, we are really working on looking at our service delivery and realizing that even though we prefer to meet with people in person, that's not the way the world is going these days. And we need to have a better option so people can elect to come in person or they can elect to be seen virtually. So we're really starting to see that with the RESEA program, and that will be something that we are required to track and provide a lot of data for back to Department of Labor. We also have seen it a lot with our TANF programs. That's our POWER program and our WIN program. Due to being short-staffed, we've really had to pivot and provide some of those virtual services. So we do have that information and we can provide that if that's something you would like to look at.
I'm speaking only for myself, but I think as a potential impact on the DWS budget, it seems like it's a relevant conversation. So setting goals around it and or tracking towards it to see, I understand that we're looking to, we would optimally want to meet with people face to face, but we have a fairly large state, and because of budgetary concerns, we took a proactive step a couple of years ago to remove how many workforce centers? 2. So we're at 21? 18, sorry. We're at 18 workforce centers around the state. That's tough to serve that geography just with 18 locations. And so I would imagine as things do become more virtual, understanding our successes in that and delivering those services would be relevant. So, yeah.
I just had one question. All the great programs you talked about, if we go back to our communities and we have someone that we feel that maybe could utilize, like maybe the nursing or something, do we send them to the one-stop or do they need to go to contact Cheyenne?
Good question. Thank you, Jim.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Engel, especially for those training grants, I would defer them to our website, and this group behind me They can answer a lot of questions. They're really good with responding to emails, and then they have those Q&A meetings once a month as
That's
well.
usually where I typically send them, but I didn't know if the
Yeah.
one-stop center's also.
No,
Okay,
thank you so
very
much.
good.
And our one-stop centers are great about kind of knowing all our services, and I
they
know
do.
they got questions, ahead of time on this grant, but these folks over here are kind of the experts on that one.
And the website is great, because I've sent some people
Awesome.
for different opportunities.
Yeah, thank you.
So great opportunity, I say at every meeting, but I just want to reiterate to council members, if you haven't visited your local one-stop, please do. Ask the director there questions about what's going on there. They'll give you a tour. They'll walk you through some of the challenges, the things that are successes and wins. Always a great opportunity just to get to know your local team so that when people do ask you, as an ambassador for Department of Workforce Services, as a council member specifically, for how they can reach out, then you know those answers. And so that was a great question, Jim. Thank you. So any other questions for Holly regarding the programs? Yes, Eric.
Am I on? There we go. Well, team Holly, and congratulations. There's a lot of things about this presentation that I'm really excited about. So looking at the EMS paramedic training, fantastic, great job. Really excited to see what the details about that are. Very, very excited about the new grant management system. So I've worked very closely with this team in the past and as a participant and all that stuff. So I'm just super happy to see that. Not only is that going to benefit you and your efficiency on your team, but the experience of businesses applying for these grants. So I can't wait to hear more details about that. I am uber excited about the digital wallet program. I think there's a lot of potential there. So, there's just so many different things. The website, is great. The apprenticeship program, fantastic. So there's just so much about, this presentation that I'm just, great job. Really great job. I'm really excited what we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Any other questions for Holly? No? Holly, thank you very much. Nice presentation. Appreciate that. It was wonderful to meet two of your new team members. So thank you. Trevor, thank you. You're already making the motion to come up here and join Christina in the hot seat. Excellent. We will have a little bit of extra time. So before we have the tax presentation at 3 o'clock, I'll build in some time for a break for the council and people who are attending here in person. And a couple other announcements that aren't on the agenda, but that we will touch on. Christina, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. We just finished a team meeting, so you see a lot of extra folks in the room. All the one-stop staff, or majority of the one-stop staff, center managers were able to step away for about a one-day meeting where we really focused on many things. We talked a lot about leadership training, as well as really looking forward to 2024 and planning our strategic plan and our goals and our objectives for the upcoming year. So it's a great opportunity. And I always like to mix things up a little bit when I present. So today, I really just want to put faces with names so that you can see the new center managers. We have a few, and they can then meet you, as I know we have some new council members. And then I'm going to turn it over to Trevor because he has a lot of great data and information on rapid responses. We are seeing more and more layoffs across the state, and so we want to make sure that we're talking about that with you as well. So to get started, I want to introduce the center managers, and I'm going to start with Shannon Gage, and I've asked them to stand up and slightly embarrass them for a little bit. Shannon Gage is the new center manager in the Casper and Douglas Workforce Center. She started in 2018, and she started as a WIOA workforce specialist in Cody. And so she just recently made the relocation from Cody to Casper, quite a change for her, but she's really enjoying it. In our strategic planning, or in some of our meetings, we've really been focusing on what are our accomplishments and what are our challenges. And we want to make sure we're sharing those with you as well. We think it's important for you to know. And so Shannon really identified her challenge is getting to know and build her team, developing her team, watching her team grow, and her biggest challenge is learning to delegate. I'm sure we can all identify with that. Some of her biggest successes are that of her leadership. She really understands the importance of perseverance and knowing that it is so important to be vulnerable vulnerable and be vulnerable with her team. Since she's taken this role, we've seen increased numbers in our employer services. We are serving more businesses. That is something that she's going to talk about and we're really passionate about. And we've also seen improvement in our WIOA cases. So I just want to say thank you to Shannon and thank you to the Casper and Douglas Workforce Centers. And I would love for you to all applause for them. We do have several, so if you guys want to wait till the end, I understand. So anyway, we'll move on to Daniel. Daniel is the Gillette Workforce Center manager, and Daniel supervises 10 staff members. He's been in his role for about 2 years, and Daniel's really been working on, or what he identifies that is a challenge is really building his team, having those hard conversations, that staying in the messy middle until we learn something new or we understand where we're all coming from. So he's working on that. And one of his successes and his team's successes is really networking and building a strong community partner with many people in the Gillette community in Campbell County. We have seen increased number of youth being served in the Gillette area. And we do have a national dislocated worker grant called Quest, and the Campbell County area, the Gillette Workforce Center, they're leading the path. They have over 16 individuals enrolled in a very short period of time. So congratulations to Daniel and the Gillette Workforce Center.
Couldn't help yourself, could you?
Okay, I'm gonna clap over.
Okay, we're clapping every time.
The next person that I would like to highlight is Christina Eaton, and she is the center manager in our Sheridan Workforce Center. She started as a WIOA workforce specialist, and she was recently, well, it's not too recent, was promoted to the center manager in 2021 during the pandemic. She supervises 9 staff members, and she's really been focused on changing the perception of the Workforce Center in Sheridan. In Sheridan, it was always seen as the unemployment office. And we really wanted to change that culture and we wanted to rebrand. And so she's really been working on that with her team, and that's become her biggest success. They've increased their outreach. They've established office hours in Ranchester and Buffalo. So they're really meeting the clients and the employers where they're at. The outreach efforts have also been really focused on how we serve our veterans and increasing our numbers with the JVSG program. So thank you to Christina and to the Sheridan team.
Hold on, Christine.
Next, I would like to talk and focus on Jeff. Jeff has been with the agency since 2016, and he leads 14 staff members in the Cheyenne Workforce Center. His biggest challenge over 2023 was our youth program in Cheyenne. There were many changes in scheduling and office hours, and there were some new adult ed instructors, and so that made the year a little challenging in that area for our youth program. We are excited, though, for 2024. In Jeff's area, we have the highest number of POWER participants. It is one of our TANF programs. And during the year, he experienced some turnover in staff. Turnover is something you'll hear me say often. And so he has spent the 2023 timeframe really hiring the right people, and then with the help of Chris Wiederspond, training those individuals in the POWER program. We now successfully have 3 staff members that offer the POWER program in the Cheyenne office, and they are collaborating and really making a difference in the POWER program. So thanks, Jeff, and thanks to the Cheyenne team.
Thanks, Jeff.
I now, just because I mentioned Chris Wiederspond, would like to highlight Chris. Chris is the TANF POWER Program Manager. Whew. And so she oversees everything TANF, that being POWER, the WIN program, and the Dad's Making a Difference program, which is an employment and training program. Chris has been with the agency since 2006, and she's been in her role since 2018. Her biggest challenge that she identified is all this turnover that impacts the program, the service delivery, as well as needing to spend more time on training. However, her biggest success is helping the centers understand power, which then improves our outcomes. We've seen a lot of success with our two-parent family outcomes. So to give you an example, in FFY 22, our percentage was we successfully served 74.5% of the two-parent families. In 1 year, we were able to increase that to 83.9%. And so that's a significant change in 1 year. And that's due to Chris's working with Department of Family Services, implementing minor changes in how we deliver services, and then helping the center managers train staff. So thank you, Chris, and thank you to the Power Case managers. Next, I would like to focus on Mary Orr. Mary Orr is the center manager for Laramie and Rollins, and she leads 8 staff members. She started in the Casper Workforce Center back in 2016, and she started as an office support specialist. She was promoted numerous times in the Workforce Center and eventually moved to Laramie to accept the position as the center manager in 2020. Mary's challenges for the year was developing a youth program in the Rollins area. That's been a challenge for us, but she never gives up, and she has a true passion for helping the individuals we serve. So she's collaborating with her team, and they keep trying. The Rollins Workforce Center is working closely with the school district, and they are providing Wagner-Preiser services in the schools, which has been an amazing start. Mary's biggest success is her team's ability to outreach. They're really focusing on providing outreach to smaller communities, which has increased the number of individuals we serve and the businesses that we also work with closely. They always think outside of the box with their service delivery. I also want to highlight Mary because she is also part of the MIS system. As most of you know, we are getting a new system. I just want to do this. And so she's been a big part of that team, and her organization is something I strive for. So thanks, Mary, and thanks to the Laramie and Rollins Workforce Centers. Mark Waltrip was not able to join us. He's off vacationing, so I would like to take a few minutes to introduce Mark. Mark is the center manager in Cody, Worland, and Powell. You'll notice that these center managers often supervise multiple centers. He's been with the agency since 2018, and he did start as a DVOP and a business rep, which helps employers, before being promoted to the center manager position. And he does currently supervise 9 staff members. Mark said his struggle or challenge, again, was turnover. He actually lost Shannon, who took a position in Casper, and Shannon was very experienced and did so much training there. And so it's been a challenge to fill that void. However, that's also his success. He has hired some great people. He has shown a lot of vulnerability to learn beside them and to really lead by example. So that has been something that has been exciting to watch. He also is really forging to have great relationships with the community and create new partnerships. He stepped up and provided a lot of training for the other centers on H2A, H2B, and housing inspections. So I really just want to say thank you to Mark and to the Cody, Powell, and Worland Workforce Centers. We're about halfway there. The next person I would like to highlight is Gilbert. Gilbert is the Wheatland and Torrington Workforce Center manager. He's worked with the agency since 2005, and he supervises four staff in the 2 offices. Through our Dare to Lead training, Gilbert has identified that he struggles with supervising from afar. He would really like to just be with his people right there. And so that's been a challenge, but we're always talking and exploring ways he can serve and supervise the staff in Wheatland. Gilbert highlighted some of his biggest accomplishments for his team was how they've been serving youth. A couple of years ago, the 2 smaller offices served anywhere from 3 to 4 youth, period. And now we are seeing 16 to 24 youth come from that area. And I just say, wow, what a way we're making a difference in that community now. So thanks, Gilbert, and thanks to the Wheatland and Torrington staff. Melody Norris was not able to be here today, but I would like to mention her next because she also has an office in the Torrington Workforce Center. Melody is the Pathway Home 3 program manager, and the Pathway Home 3 grant is a grant that we received about a year ago to serve justice-involved individuals. The rollout of this grant has been rewarding, but also challenging for her as we learn new things. I can tell you to date, we already have over 100 individuals enrolled in the program. We have individuals that are enrolled while they're still incarcerated, and we also have individuals that have been released and already gained sustainable employment. So this is off to a really great start so that we're on track to meet our goal of serving 400 individuals. This is a statewide program, so we have Melody in Torrington, and then we have 4 other case managers spread throughout the state. So I want to say thank you to Melody and to that team. Deanna Crofts was not able to be here today. She's been out of the office, so I would, and she wasn't able to participate in our reflection, but I want to say that she is the center manager in Lander and Riverton, and she supervises 10 individuals. Her staff have been very busy, as again, we've experienced some turnover in that office or that location. So we've been really focusing on training and ensuring they're comfortable with their day-to-day duties. Through all of that, we have seen increased numbers in that area in Riverton and Lander, specifically working with youth, and we are really working on building a stronger relationship with adult education in that area. So thanks to Deanna and the Riverton and Lander area. The next person I would like to introduce is Tom. Tom is the center manager for what we call around here Team Jake. I said, yes, Jake. And if you notice, he probably looks like Jake from State Farm today. I'm so thankful he changed his shirt. What Jake stands for is Jackson, Afton, Kimmer, and Evanston. So it means something, and he does supervise everyone from that area. He has 10 total staff members throughout all of those offices, and he's been with the agency since 2016. And he started as a DVOP and a business service, employer service individual, and he was promoted to the center manager position from there. Throughout the last year in 2023, we really saw a lot of changes. He used to supervise Rock Springs, and then we pivoted, and he now supervises Jackson. And so there was a time of transition, and that was a challenge, but it was also very successful. Staff needed to adapt, learn his new style. Often there was change in job duties. That was challenging, but Tom's leadership made the transition simple. Tom's ability to connect, build relationships, and meet staff where they need to be is absolutely amazing. So thank you to Tom and to Team Jake. Next, I want to focus on Amy Souza. She's the center manager of the Rock Springs office, and we call that center the Rock. That center, she's been with the agency since 2019, and she also started as a youth case manager. I hope you're starting to see a theme. We really do like to hire from within. We really like to promote. That's something that's very important to us. And she was promoted to the center manager position just this year in 2023. Her biggest challenges, staff turnover. That's something that, again, we struggled with in 2023. However, she has really stepped up, provided some very strong training for her staff, and she has even volunteered to be out and train with other workforce centers. Her biggest accomplishments, really that I've also seen, is how her leadership has impacted the center. She has a great team that's really been built on honesty and authenticity, and you can really just feel those good vibrations. So thanks, Amy, and thanks to The Rock. Holly mentioned Shelby, so I'd like to focus on Shelby Cunningham. She's the RACIA program manager. She was recently promoted to this role and was previously a WIOA case manager in the Sheridan Workforce Center, and she's been with the agency since 2016. She identified that her challenges were stepping into this new role and really just trying to understand this new role. She's done really, really well. She was hard on herself there. Since being in this role, she's updated all of our policies and procedures. She organized and conducted a RACIA conference and really provided staff some strong training. Currently, with the RACIA program, the centers see approximately 30 to 40 RACIA participants a week. So thank you, Shelby, and thank you to the RACIA team. And last but not least, we finally made it. Phew, I feel like I've been talking fast. I'll take a break. We have Christina Arizona. Christina Arizona is the ENT program manager, and she really helps oversee the entire team. She's been with the agency for 10 years, and she's a great support to this team. Her knowledge is amazing. We've had some challenges in the year, many just related to so many new programs. We've had RACIA, we've had the Pathway Home, we have a new MIS, we have ARPA, we have a digital wallet. So it's just sometimes overwhelming. And so it's finding that true balance. And Arizona has strong emotional intelligence, and we talk about that balance frequently. Her strength is how resilient she is and how she steps up to help us all the time. So thank you, Christina. So, Mr. Chairman and committee members, this is the team that does the great work we frequently talk about. I'm trying not to get emotional here. I encourage you to connect with them. I encourage you to reach out to them, to schedule a meeting, to go to lunch, to just meet with them. We also see you as a resource. We see you as expertise in the community. And so we want to collaborate with you. We want to partner with you so we can continue providing amazing service across the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And if I may, really quick, it rare is the opportunity for us as a council to have this many center managers in the room with us. So I want to express on behalf of the council that what you guys do is amazing. I've visited a few of the centers. When you're there, you feel the pulse of it. You realize how this is the front line. These are the people driving the great work for our organization. This is probably the hardest position within our organization and benefits workforce across the state of Wyoming more than any other position in our state. So I do want to say thank you guys very much from the council. Yep.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
And to add a little bit to that, please reach out to any council member in your community or even anyone. Call Fabian, call me if you guys have anything that you think we can help you with on the private side, or maybe an employer that's being hostile. I mean, I know most of them, and I can calm them down. Reach out to us as well. I know we try to have interaction with you, but reach out to us.
Thank you, Jim. So I can't let it slide. I heard something about layoffs. Anything we can talk about there, or, oh, Trevor.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the Rapid Response Program and give you a brief overview and background of what this is. The Rapid Response is the program we utilize when DWS learns of a business layoff or closure. DWS responds whether we learn there's one worker affected or there are 100 workers or over 100. Although our approach for each situation differs depending on its circumstances. When DWS responds, we will provide support and resources to the affected workers, which can include information on the workforce centers and the programs that the affected workers may be eligible for, how to apply for unemployment insurance, information on health insurance or the marketplace and how they can try to maintain coverage, and other resources as they're available or appropriate. The overall goal of the Rapid Response Program is to help each of the workers who've lost their employment to get reemployed as quickly as possible. So on this slide, 267, pretty basic slide here, but this is the increase in the number of affected businesses that we have seen already in 2023 compared to 2022. So we're seeing a lot more businesses that are having layoffs or closures than we did the previous calendar year. And 10, this slide here shows the increase in the number of workers we've seen. So even though we've had a significant increase in the number of businesses that have faced a layoff or a closure, we're seeing about the same number of affected workers. And so finally, on this slide here, you can see those raw numbers of what the 2022 versus 2023 layoffs and affected workers are. We thought this conversation was appropriate for this meeting, just to make sure you're aware of this program and know that it's out there to assist workers who may be losing their job due to a layoff or business closure. And Casper has been particularly hard hit. We noted over a quarter of the rapid response events we've had this year have been here in Casper. We've seen a lot of small stores, restaurants, those type of things, mom and pop type stores. So yeah, if you do learn of a business layoff or closure, please reach out. You can reach out to my team, Christina's team, any of the workforce centers, and let them know you've heard a business is closing or laying people off. These are only the numbers from the businesses that we capture, that we become aware of, and that we reach out to try to help the workers. So likely, these numbers are just a portion of what's actually happening if we never hear about it. So additionally, if you hear that a business is on the brink of a layoff or closure, please reach out as well so that we can try to connect that business with other possible resources like short-time compensation or STC to help them bridge the gap so that they can remain in business. And then one final note that I wanted to share, as you may have heard, the council recently purchased a Starlink satellite. The main reason for purchasing this was for the quarterly meetings where we've had some connectivity issues in the past and wanting to make sure that the hybrid format can function for those attending virtually or if we're receiving a presentation here in the room. But as an added bonus, if the agency were to respond to a large-scale layoff, the Starlink could be utilized to help expand internet capabilities for our workforce centers or at the site. So if it was out of town where we may not have good or reliable internet, staff could actually respond in person to that business and be able to help the workers right there as they're facing that impending layoff or business closure. So thank you to the council for investing in this, not only for your purposes, but also in the event that the agency runs into in case we have to respond to a large business closure where this can come into play.
Thank you. Boy, I missed one meeting and Eric's getting all these things approved. All his toys.
I've experienced a rapid response from DWS, and it is rapid. When we had the coal mine layoffs, I mean, it was like $100,000 instantly was thrown in, I think, to Gillette College, but I mean, you guys were there.
Awesome.
Made everybody feel good.
That's great.
It was sad, but you guys made them feel good.
If I can ask, because we have Tony in the room. Tony, if you don't mind standing up so I can introduce you real quick. So Tony Glover is the manager for the research and planning arm of the Department of Workforce Services. If you're not familiar, which likely you already are, but they are housed in this building, right? You've got over a dozen researchers? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off there. Got it, great. They provide an invaluable service. So if you go to their site, which by the way, why is it housed on a DOE domain? Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so anyway, if you just type in research planning Wyoming, you'll be brought to the site. Massive amounts of great data. Quarterly, they produce reports. There's sometimes special reports produced. You could commission a report, correct? Just have to pay for it, could we? So 3 days instead of 1? But great data. Data is power. Data is the new oil. And I think understanding the numbers, I use it frequently with economic development conversations that happen in my community. There's labor market information for the next gen sector partnerships. If you're not familiar with it, please take a look at that because there's just it's the most comprehensive data set that I've seen in terms of what our economy is doing in the state. And so I do want to say thank you very much to Tony and your team. I appreciate all you guys do. But I had a question and all that, Tony, and you don't have to stand up. But do we currently track businesses that do a shutdown in the state in any kind of manner? Or Trevor, do we do that?
Yeah, we keep track of the businesses that we respond to for rapid response. Some of them are publicly releasable, some of them are not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is, and it's an important point you bring up about reaching out to the Department of Workforce Services for any significant sized business that is planning to go out of business and will be potentially laying people off so that they can work in conjunction with the Department of Workforce Services to ensure some kind of bridge or soft landing, correct?
Correct, yeah, and I would say any business, so if you hear, even if there's only 2 employees at a business, but you hear it's closing, let us know so that we can help those workers, whether it's making sure that they know how to apply for unemployment or knowing about our MIS site and knowing that that's available to help search for jobs or getting enrolled in one of our programs to get retrained in a different career.
Great. Thank you very much. So us as council members, as ambassadors for workforce services in the state, this is an important facet of things we hear about that we can then pass along some good information for. So thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Trevor? Yes, Tammy.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Trevor, that was really great. The 570, just ballpark, how many of those workers reached out to you and were you able to help? Maybe you said it and I just missed it, but.
I don't know offhand. I think that's the number of workers that we've become aware of that have been involved in those business closures. So what happens when there is a rapid response is we have a packet of information that we can email or print off and take to the workers. And so I think anytime that we're able to reach those workers, we're going to get them that information and then let them take it from there, whether they want to reach out for additional help.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I just want to add a little bit to that because Trevor is so correct. One of the things that the workforce centers really try to do is, again, meet the employers and the individuals where they're at. So often we've had a lot here in Casper and Amy is the business rep and she'll get an email and boom, she's immediately out and meeting with that business. So we're really trying to get there, communicate, connect with them, provide the packets. We have them electronic and paper and really try to offer a rapid response event, something that is what we did there in Gillette, where we're sharing information about all the services we provide, connecting them with unemployment insurance, and really trying to see how we can minimize the amount of time that they're without employment and on unemployment. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Great, thank you very much. Christina, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Director Cooley.
First, one thing, if you'll explain for some of the new members what a DVOP is. But then I would also want to make mention on the rapid response, though, what we've also started doing, and we did it in one fairly recently in Rollins, is we're starting to wrap in other agencies with it too. As the Business Council was part of that. I think education was part of that. I know the community college was a part of that. So we're bringing in all these, well, we're all grouping together to make this a holistic look at reemployment, getting people into other jobs as quickly as we can, utilizing all the other resources through all of the other opportunities we have with other agencies, state agencies or otherwise. So I just want to make a mention of that because it is, we're starting to expand that effort because we recognize the benefit to doing that.
Thank you. Very good. Oh, DVOP,
Mr.
sorry. Yes, Christina.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, so a DVOP stands for Disabled Veteran Outreach Program, and it's part of our, here's another acronym, JVSG program, which is Jobs for Veterans State Grant. And what that is we have funding from Department of Labor to specifically work with veterans that have significant barriers to employment. So all Workforce Center staff are trained to work with veterans, but if we identify the veteran has a significant barrier to unemployment, we can refer them to these specialized, trained veterans themselves, individuals, to provide stronger service. It's kind of that connection from veteran to veteran. It just seems to work better.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Christina. Casper Workforce Center update. As is tradition, we typically get an update from the local Workforce Center. So we'll ask Shannon and Amy Peterson to come to the front. Go ahead and just push the button on those microphones to get those on.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council members. I just took this position in August in Casper. I was really excited to come here because I'm passionate about workforce and what we do. And Casper is a community that has a lot of need. I mean, we have had, just since August, 5 business closures that we're aware of. We have provided, we've offered rapid response services. Some have accepted it, some have not, but we do provide the information. I have participated in a couple very large rapid responses in Cody. We had Cody Labs and Certainteed close. After we presented WIOA, we did gain several participants that got their CDL, and we did get several that had their RN, that gained their RN. And those were cases that I was able to carry through up to 3 years. Some of them, I think the one through Certainteed was so emotionally charged. It was a group event. And someone asked the question, he said, I'm 56 years old. What are you going to do for me? I've worked here my whole life. And so how are you going to get me a job? And who's going to hire me at my age? And so I think from that, training is not for everybody. I mean, everybody is not going to go to college. They're not going to go into training. So what we could do is meet with them individually. They can walk in without an appointment. We can work with them with a resume, work with them with job search, and also look at on-the-job training. And that's kind of where I would like to take us forward into the year here in Casper, is to focus more on the job training opportunities. So we're working to partner with more employers and really create those relationships. We have gained 13 new employers since August. We've held 9 hiring events. We've set up weekly hiring events on Tuesdays. The last few that have contacted us because they heard about it, word of mouth. So we are very excited about that. Can you speak to how the last one went? The last one was very successful.
We had one yesterday for Casper College. It was probably the most attended hiring event that we've had. And the HR person that came for that event was very pleased with how it went. And she just kept telling me, Amy, this is such a great event. I'm just so pleased with this. And so she said, we definitely would like to do another one in January or February. And so I think the more that we're getting these events out in the community for the employers as well as candidates, it's going to benefit our community and get more people to work and help the employers gain qualified candidates as well. So I think this is one of our things that will be evolving for this year, the next coming year, is to continue to have further hiring events. And we feature one employer a week, and all the employers are just ecstatic that they are the only company there that the people are there to see and can focus on their jobs and their companies. So very, very great experience for everyone.
And we've also had a lot of turnover in Casper. And as we're working to get our new WIOA case managers trained, really creating these relationships with businesses so we can just bridge the gap. Like I said, with the on-the-job training, we have someone joining us at the end of the month who has worked with workforce in Montana for the past 11 years, and he specialized in apprenticeships. So I'm very excited to have him on the team and have him be able to work with Amy and then really focus on that side of the business relations with apprenticeship and OJT. So that's where we would like to head in the coming year here.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll open it up for any questions for the Casper Workforce Center team. Tammy?
Yeah, thank you. I'm concerned, we've heard it twice now, turnover in the workforce centers. What do you attribute that to? That's kind of concerning.
Mr. Chairman and council members, I think turnover, businesses come to us every day and ask that same question. Why do we have the turnover? Why we can't find workers? I don't have an answer for that. I think DWS has worked so hard to create such a great working environment. We have flexibility, we have open communication. I think it's a great place to work, so I don't have an answer to that question.
One of the things I know is that you guys are all out there as employers that know of a good employee at DWS. We'll try to hire them away. And the same thing happens with any industry. We are a service industry. My friend owns banks, and there's always some of his customers that are hiring his employees. But I know when I walk into any business and I see a rock star, I try to hire them. And you guys have had some rock stars that have gotten hired away to the private sector. So, and that's one of the things. It's just a secular thing, but
Yeah.
you guys are there for the pickings from us private sector people.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when you were talking about the rapid response and that some employers opt not to take advantage of that service, what do they cite as the reason for not wanting to do that?
Have you had anyone give an answer?
I think it's probably more privacy. Yeah. The couple of employers that I have talked to them want to keep it kind of more just in their facility and not have it out in the community. And so we approach that with, saying, well, if we're not able to come on site, could you please, let your employees know that we have these services to please come to the resource center and we'll sit and talk to them, which we had a business a couple weeks ago that closed that we were not able to do a rapid response. A lot of the times we're seeing right now that companies don't tell us that they're closing until they're closed. And then we find out and I go there and the doors are closed, but I kind of peek around and see if there's anybody there. And I have had the opportunity doing that to talk to someone and get a response to at least get some, go with a handful of packets to say, is there a way we can pass these out, So there's ways around the actual rapid response event. So I'm just trying to find that. So.
Very good. Thank you. Well, share with all of us when you hit on those nuggets of good, so we can hear about it. Any other questions from the council for Shannon and Amy? No? Guys, thank you very much for the great work you do. Appreciate that. We have a few minutes, 23 minutes, till we have the Tax Foundation presenting to us, a really interesting topic. A couple things I want to touch on, and then we'll take a little bit of a break. One is I'd like to introduce Danny. Danny Bureau is one of our council members. He is the head of the subcommittee for communications. As we've talked about when we went through a strategic planning process this last year, as a council, we want to do a better job of getting the word out on who we are, what we do, so that people know to turn to us, so that we can better be the ambassadors for the one-stops and for the Department of Workforce Services as a whole. So Danny and the communications team have come up with, I believe, a wonderful idea in terms of how to get the word out a little bit within our local communities as ambassadors. And Danny, if I can just turn that over to you, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully everybody got a chance in
on board to see the boilerplate document that Jennifer sent out several days ago. We had this idea in our breakout last quarterly meeting that it'd be good to broadcast to the public what it is that Workforce Development Council is doing. And that's at times a challenge to describe what our council is. So we had this idea that if we could have one kind of unified message that we could use. So thank you to the communications team at Workforce Services as well for writing this up. It's a really simple thing. It's a one-page document. You got to change about 2 sentences, give a little anecdote, really straightforward, kind of describing what our council does, introducing yourself, and then kind of explaining the value of this council. So it's a really straightforward document. Take some time, read through it, punch your information in. I think requires a headshot also. And then I'll go back to Jennifer to make sure that you haven't done anything crazy would be my.
Yeah, it'll come back to us to review and to post in your local newspapers. And Charlie, I don't want to call you out, but I'm going to call you out. We need your picture. Also, the idea, like your testimonial at the end, will be used for our Facebook posts. So in weeks that we don't have a lot of material, we're just going to pull that and blast you on our social media pages. So that's also why we need your picture. And if you want a new picture, for those of you who might have an older picture or want us to use an older picture, if you have a new picture. I don't know why you're looking at me. Just looking around. Just looking around. If you have a different picture you'd like us to update the website with, and for when we do put your information out on social media, just send that to me as well.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Communications Committee. I think that's a wonderful idea. I think us getting the word out is a very grassroots level, one at a time, organic type process. It's no one ad we can throw out there that's going to do that. And plus, I think it buys a lot of local credibility, and it gives a face and humanity to the whole effort. And so I appreciate it. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Chairman?
Yes, Tammy?
What social media? I really don't like being on social media. So do we have a choice here on what social media platforms?
Yeah,
It's already on the council. I mean, she said they're going to use our pictures, which they have, so.
The council has a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page.
Both growing. I think over the last year and a half or so, both have been, there's been a lot more engagement with the content that we put out there. I think it's been useful. So thank you for whoever's been contributing to that. I know various people have been doing it over the last couple of years. One last thing I do want to mention is, I think we were talking about Deanna Crofts earlier, who is the Fremont County Workforce Center Manager. She's not here today. However, it reminded me that this year, thank you to Tony Cross, who recommended it to us as a council. We will be meeting this year for the first time in, at least since I've been on for the last 7 or 8 years. We will be meeting, our next meeting will be, I think the next meeting in spring will be at the, on the Wind River Indian Reservation, hearing about some of the programs there, challenges there, good things there, opportunities there. But I think it was a good recommendation. And so when we get a chance to be there, I'm sure Deanna Crofts will be able to attend our meeting. So we have 18 minutes. Why don't we go ahead and take a break? Again, there's some coffee service in the back. There's restrooms outside here. And if you want to go and just sit in Tony's office and talk about research and planning, you can join me. Thank you.
I'll just tell him.
I have enough for the council. For my team, what I have are gifts that I'm gonna raffle off to them at other times during the year, so.
All right, if I can ask everybody to take their seats, please. All right, great. Thank you very much. I know. I love the networking time too. It's my favorite part of this. I love it. I love it. We'll have time tonight at dinner. And by the way, if I didn't express it earlier, Director Cooley definitely encourages any of the workforce center managers that want to join us for dinner tonight at Fire Rock. Please do. Please do. Interact with your council members, with one another. It's just, it's better than going back to the room and watching Netflix. There's nothing on, I promise you. Sounds like Jim's got the first round. That's one announcement. The other one is Director Cooley wants to remind there's still 5 pineapple cakes. I just had one, amazing, and 6 moon pies from Taiwan, which they still see the same moon we do, right?
I think so.
Okay, good. So those, so there's 11 lucky people that could come up here and claim one of these. But I would like to go ahead and introduce Ashley. Ashley, help me pronounce your last name. Harpstreet. Okay, Ashley Harpstreet. Ashley's with the Wyoming Taxpayers Association. I've gone on and scanned through their site, so I'm super excited to hear this presentation. And Ashley has promised me we'll open it up for some questions towards the end, and some timely advice on how to avoid certain taxes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Ashley, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Director Cooley and Fabian, for having me here. I'm used to testifying here, so this is a way more fun hot seat to be in. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I'm sure this will make taxes as fun as you can make it. But if you want to go to the next slide, I start with a little humor. And then just to back up, I guess, a second, for those of you who I don't know, my name is Ashley Harpstreet. I'm the Executive Director of Wyoming Taxpayers Association. But previous to this role, I was the CEO for Goshen County Economic Development in Torrington, and did a lot of workforce activities while I was there. And then previous to that, I was the director for workforce development at Eastern Wyoming College. So I've had a lot of interaction with this council and this agency for a very long time, and I always love to visit with you guys. So thanks again for having me. But we'll just start with a little humor because it's just, so fun to talk about taxes. There's 2 things certain in life: you're going to die and you're going to pay taxes, right? So next slide. But this quote is super important, that is worth repeating even as you read it. This is from the director of Wyoming Department of Revenue. Why do we pay taxes? Taxes are the structure by which we as citizens pool our resources to pay for infrastructure and services we could not afford on our own. The goal for those responsible for administering those taxes is to ensure taxpayers are paying their fair share of the tax burden, no more or no less. It is the responsibility of the legislature to determine what that amount is. Next slide. So what is WTA? I see some fellow friends that I'm down in the legislature with, so they know me pretty well. We've been around since 1937. We advocate for a sound tax policy for a healthy Wyoming economy. We are not anti-tax. We are not pro-tax. We are about sound tax policy. We are a private, nonprofit 501c4 think tank with a 501c3 research arm. Our membership is super diverse. We have individual members to large companies. We have renewable energy to mineral wealth, to ranchers, to corporations, to cooperatives, elected officials, and private citizens. So everything in between. Sometimes our policy discussions get pretty interesting. On to the next slide. So one of the things that made me super attracted to this organization, and still I feel is the backbone and cornerstone of which we stand upon, is our pillars and cornerstones of taxation. And everything we look at, we decide, is it justified? Is it equitable? Is it stable? Is it transparent? you'll see a lot of economic development-ish wording in here. Is it equitable? You know, does this disadvantage one taxpayer of another? That's hard when you're recruiting companies in. If one group that does the same exact thing is going to get taxed differently than the other. So that's something a lot of bills go to die on. Is it justified? You know, do the means result in the end with that opening statement? You know, does it make sense to put the tax on? Is it stable? And we'll talk about property tax here in a second and why that's an important stable tax. And is it transparent? And that's super important to the taxpayer, and why a lot of people are upset right now is not understanding why they're being taxed. So this provides a litmus test for all of our legislators and policymakers. And they know when I come at them, it's not because I just don't like it. There's analysis and there's thoughtfulness of why we support or oppose a position. Next slide. So to understand where we are, it's important to understand where we've been. So since the inception of the severance tax in 1970, Wyoming has been beholden to the boom and bust nature of our energy economy. And by the late 1990s, the writing was on the wall. Our former executive director, Michael Walden Newman, collaborated with Governor Jim Geringer's office, and actually Senator Lummis was the chief of staff at the time, about we're back in a bust situation. Like, how do we fix this? If we reset our tax structure, what would we want it to look like? So I just had my annual meeting last week, and probably, bless you, 30 years ago, they were having the same conversation for that annual meeting of like, let's just reset the tax code and let's see what it would look like. And so they had this really fun conversation. Legislators in the room were like, hey, we like this conversation. So what should we do? Create a task force. Everybody's been part of those if you're on this council. So they created a task force, and we wrote the legislation for Tax Reform 2000. From Tax Reform 2000, on this bipartisan committee, they created recommendations that stay true to the day, the same today, but Wyoming's tax structure lacked equity, stability, and balance. Notice those words were just pulled out of our cornerstones. And you can see all the reasons why, but mainly because at the time, primarily 75% of the state's tax revenue was generated by property taxes, mineral severance taxes, and sales and use taxes, all from the minerals industry. So if you go to the next slide, if you look at our tax structure today, and we'll get to the minerals piece of what part contributes to our economy, but property tax makes up 47% of our structure, sales and use tax, and then usually the third leg that states stand on is an income tax, but we know that we all enjoy not having an income, individual or corporate income tax. But there's other things that make up that piece of the pie, which is our severance tax, which makes us very unique. And then the other taxes, which only account for 5% of our tax structure, but those are the ones that get the headlines: fuel tax, wind tax, franchise tax, all the sin taxes. But those are a very small portion of our structure. Next slide. So if you're wondering of how we compare, this will be available if you want to go back and look at these slides. You can see in the Rocky Mountain region how we compare, but you want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Again, there's those three legs of the revenue stool. We only have two of them. And so in the next slide, you'll see here in a second that we are the 47th lowest in residential property tax. And Colorado is one of the states that has a lower property tax than us, barely, but they have an income tax. They have all three levers they're pulling, where we're only pulling the property tax and the sales tax. So could be worse. Next slide. Yeah, and residential, and I'll get to that slide here in a second. So drilling down on sales tax, the power of the penny, and we'll talk about our books that we produce. This is all available online and in our books we push out, but you can see of every penny raised, what goes to the state and what goes to the locals, and then the total amount raised. And this just is fresh off the Wyoming Department of Revenue's fiscal year 2023 report. Next slide. And then Mayor Matt Hall just left, but this is a slide that all the mayors and all my community people call me on all the time. Who levers what pennies are available? So 4%, every county, all 23 counties leverage 23 pennies, or 4 pennies. General purpose, you have to ballot upon that, and every county except for Park County, he's not here, so he's on the menu. Park County and Sublette County are the only two that don't have that. Specific purpose, there's 12 counties. Municipal purpose, they did, WAM got that on a couple years ago. There's nobody at this time that uses that. There's a resort district. They are all in Teton County. There's 2 districts within Teton County that put on an additional 3 cents on your check. And then economic development tax, quarter cent is at Goshen County, and then half a penny is in Fremont County. If you go to the next slide. Property tax, this is the hot topic, and will continue to be the hot topic because of our high assessments. But if you look at how it's derived, 52% of our property tax, we're reliant on the minerals industry. And that doesn't include their industrial state assessed properties. So that's actually a little bit higher than that 52%. And this is using an average mill levy. So there, you might see numbers other places that might be slightly off, but we used an average mill levy on this. You can see the residential property, the state and locally industrial assessed commercial property, and then ag lands only account for 2% of all the real estate taxes collected. Next slide. So this is a really important slide here, is how it's used. Where does this money go? As we are looking at ballot initiatives that would bypass the legislature with no backfill, or other legislative considerations in this next session, the big thing to be concerned about is that property tax is a local tax. This is not a state tax. This isn't going up to the state and they're rubbing themselves in all this extra valuation money. This is going to your local communities and mainly to the school foundation program. The rest is going to county government, cities and towns, special districts, all of which are balloted upon, and then community colleges, which I know this group is a big supporter of. And it is interesting with our community colleges, I'm sure most of you guys know, the only ones paying taxes of that 4% are the 8 counties that choose to leverage themselves, that have the community college housed in them. Even though all 23 counties use the community colleges, only 8 counties pay for it. Whereas UW, everybody pays for it. That's a different discussion for another day. Next slide. Back to the question about how we rank. You can see when we're looking at just residential property tax, Wyoming ranks 47th as of 2022, fiscal year 2022. This is from Tax Foundation and US Census data, as the lowest residential property tax in the United States. The states that fall behind us are Colorado, Alabama, and Hawaii. I am not saying assessed valuations are out of control in different counties, that we probably need to, or we are talking about that, but do know that we still rank the lowest in the United States significantly, and everybody's dealing with high assessment raises post-COVID. Next slide. So what does this mean for economic development and diversification? Ron's seen this slide a bazillion times. When this group probably remembers NDOW, economically needed diversification options for Wyoming, that Governor Meade started in, the teens of 2020, and so, or 2000, and they decided to leave tax off the table. They're like, let's just diversify the economy, and then the legislature can kind of figure out what makes sense. Well, the Joint Revenue Chairman, Chairman Mike Madden out of Johnson County is like, well, I want to kind of figure out what this does look like if we diversify this economy and we have astronauts come here and do, like, I know there's like a lot of aerospace stuff going on in Casper. What happens if that economy booms in Natrona County? What does that look like for every 100 jobs? I'm ahead of slide. Let's go forward and then I'll go backwards. For every 100 jobs coming into Wyoming. And so they analyzed 4 different states with 4 different industries: oil and gas, chemical manufacturing, utility, and food manufacturing, and then Wyoming versus Utah, North Dakota, and Kentucky, because we had similar economies. And what they realized using RIMI, which is Regional Economic Models Incorporated, they presented fiscal impacts of economic diversification under Wyoming's current tax structure. And what they realized is that Wyoming's effort to stimulate non-resource sectors in the state presents fiscal challenges. Only growth in resource sectors has significant positive fiscal impacts. So basically, every 100 jobs that DWS helps create or bring outside the minerals industry is going to cost our state money. And then we'll go backwards, and here's why. The individual taxpayer, if we're not paying severance tax, or we're not paying anything that extra tax to pick up the bills, the local person, that this is from economic analysis, for a 3-person family with an income of $67,000, owning a home valued at $290,000, and this is all their median incomes and ages and values. They put about $3,990 into the state tax system and get about $27,000 back out. So for $1 in, you get $6.90 back out in public service. This does not include federal funds. Just a note, side note, in 2020, Wyoming citizens and businesses sent over $6.4 billion to the federal government and received $7 billion back in payment and employment, support of our parks, federal matching dollars that I'm sure you work a lot in roads and employment services, those kinds of things. But overall, as a state, we have a very low tax burden, very thankful to our investment income and our mineral wealth. Did you have a question?
I do, Ashley, thank you. So that would be for somebody, not somebody who's unemployed taking a position. It's somebody moving into the community and taking one of those jobs in one of those industries.
Yep.
So
Outside of minerals.
outside of minerals.
Outside
If
of-
there were minerals, then we're cash flow positive. If it's anything outside of minerals, then we're cash flow negative.
Correct.
From that new hire.
Yep.
Okay.
So, but that does not mean let your foot off the gas. As a former economic developer / workforce development director, like, you got to keep doing what you're going to do, and the legislature is going to have to figure it out and figure out how to pay their bills. But the interesting thing is if you go ahead, another slide, one more. If you look at just the GDP, you can see the earnings by industry, by, our top industries here, ag, mining, oil and gas, manufacturing, and travel, where the earnings are coming into the state, where we have surpluses, and where their taxes are, and where the discrepancies are. And our legacy industries have no problem paying their taxes. They just don't want to pay more. But you can see we have things going on. We have lots of really cool things going on. It's just the legislature, and we'll talk here in a second about the budget that's coming up. They're going to either, kick the can down the road, try to make some investment decisions that, push it out further, and wait till they hit that fiscal crisis, or they'll have to start pulling some levers eventually. So if you want to go to the next slide. So if you want to look at our revenues of where we've been and where we're going, the top line is the appropriation, and the bar graph is the revenue that actually came in. And this is a 20-year snapshot. The thing about, how quick is that financial crisis away? Probably, with our surplus and the CREG that just came in, we'll talk about that here in a second. We're looking like 7, 8, 10 years away, like we're looking pretty good. But it can change on a dime. We have a year of reserves and revenue, which as a business, if you have a year in operating, that's awesome, right? So we have time, but our motto is fix the roof while the sun is shining, right? And if you think about back to the year 2020, which all of us kind of have a little PTSD bringing that back up, but you can see they appropriated about $3.1 billion, and then Governor Gordon, I'm sure Director Cooley had to do a lot of this. We had to work really hard on a lot of budget cuts, over $500 million. There was over 300 jobs cut, and they cut to the bone to about early 2000 level revenues. And then you can see how volatile it is, though, with the supplemental budget in fiscal year 23-24. Last year at the general session, they were back up to almost $3.5 billion. So volatile in nature, underscore. We're still okay, but know that we are on a cliff. Next slide. So as we enter our 2024 budget session, most of you know that it takes 2/3 vote for bill introduction. This is a budget year, so it's a short year. It starts on February 12th, 2024. They'll meet for 20 days, and their main goal is to present a balanced budget, and that they are required constitutionally. Per the October CREG, which is the Consensus Revenue Estimating Group that looks at forecasting revenues, so the group knows what they can do to the legislature, and the governor can decide how to put together their budgets. They have about $780 million in excess. So they have multiple options, but there is a lot of warning with this one-time funding. We're at the end of the ARPA dollars, the IJA dollars, so the federal fundings, those are all great dollars, are all in play, but those aren't things we can rely on anymore, and there's a lot of one-time funding out there. We had a height with natural gas, that's on the way back down. So this isn't stabilized funding, back to that stable word, where we can consistently work on that $780 million in excess. Right now, the Legislative Stabilization Reserve account balance, that's our rainy day fund, has about $1.9 billion in it. The School Foundation Program, which is the one that always is that we're having to backfill and keep whole because of the Constitution, that has about $1 billion in it. So then if you fast forward real quick to the next slide, in revenue, the main considerations are property tax issues. There'll be an acquisition value bill that they just dropped. There's two bills, one a constitutional amendment, and then one looking at a measure that California uses called Prop 13. They're the only state that does that, and it would be a tax property system based off the purchase price of your home. It would take 4 constitutional amendments. They're looking at that on Monday, so that has yet to pass. They're looking at the property tax refund expansion. They did pass this last year, expanded it, it's always been in play, but they refunded 8,813 applications and $8.2 million. 57% of the rejected applications were over the income limit. 13% were over the asset limit. So they have a new proposal that expands it, which is that 24 LSO 0252. That expands 6 income tiers and will be funded by the general fund. Before those changes, they were thinking the next year, as is the program is now, it'll be about $10 million, but if they expand to 6 tiers, you're probably looking at a $30 million cost. They're looking at a homeowner's tax exemption, and you can see I'll send these slides so you can see all the considerations there. A property tax exemption for long-term homeowners, and that's 50% off if you're 65 and have paid into Wyoming's system for 30 plus years. A lot of states do that. Next slide. There is a tax valuation, which is, basically the tax caps they'll look at, and then the failed proposals that could be back as individual bills is property tax deferral, monthly payments, and mill levy amendments. One other thing happening in revenue worth mentioning, next slide, is sales tax administration. So there's 16 consideration to the sales tax code. They're putting in one omnibus bill. If you see any of these things on there that might affect you, more than happy to talk to you offline. And then I'm going to fast forward to keep going. I have a lot of other slides, but I'll put those on the slide deck to share to the tax trends. Keep going. Yep. So for the budget session, the tax trends are investment revenues. As I said before, it provides 1/3 of our revenue to the budget. It saves the average taxpayer approximately $3,000 a year. Trust funds. Do we set up those trust funds for today's problem and fight, and fight those high inflation costs, or do we save that money for tomorrow's problems and fight low returns? So do we go ahead and use it? Do we go ahead and save? There's pros and cons with both of it. There's also taxation talk around new mineral wealth, taxation of new mineral space. You've heard the governor talk a lot about carbon capture and sequestration. They're going to be discussing that at Joint Minerals over the next 2 days in Gillette. This is election year, this next year, 2024, so everybody gets to really posturing. So there's antics that go into play of where they just throw the cornerstones out the window and vote up or down just because. So you never know with an election year. There's a ton of constitutional amendments. There's a ballot initiative. There's 2 ballot initiatives going out, and I'm pretty well versed on this, and I got myself confused on it the other day. So the legislature last year voted to separate out residential property tax class so they can tax them different and work on those valuations, or those high evaluations. And that will be on the ballot. That's already gone through the legislative process. That's signed, sealed, delivered, going on the ballot. Then there is a ballot initiative to get signatures to bypass the entire legislative process to look at a homeowner's exemption that would be 50% off the homeowner's exemption, your homeowner's tax bill, but there's no backfill to those general services. And that's where people are coming around. Sounds like they just came to your house asking to sign something. So if you sign something, like it or hate it, just know what you're signing. But there are 2 ballot initiatives that are our big conversations right now. And I will leave you with, there are two quotes that I think stay consistent. If you're not paying, you're not paying attention. So if you don't like what's going on, you need to pay attention to the legislature. And two, don't text you, don't text me, text the fellow behind the tree. Everybody loves that motto. And then fast forward to one more slide, and then we can open it up. These are all my handles. We put a lot of free information out there. I would highly encourage you to go to our website. If you go to Research and Education and Publications, you'll find both these publications online. This is the most updated information from DOR's annual report, Department of Audit, Board of Equalization, all in one place for property tax. And then our Wyoming tax summary. We work with all the different agencies, one being Department of Workforce Services, where you can find out all the taxes collected this last year. So for example, workers' compensation, the fiscal year 23 was $591.83 million. 214 million is such a big number. And then we worked together, Director Cooley and I did, and Kari, before she left, about what the benefits are from those taxes paid in, because both workers' comp and unemployment insurance have a little bit more of a story to tell. So we talked about what was paid in medical expenses and indemnity benefits, and then workers' compensation account balance that you guys do a lot of great work with, and then the balance in the federal UI trust fund. So I thought that was pretty cool. We were able to highlight that this year. So if you see anything else that you want to know about, there's just a ton of information in both of these. But that was my road show, 30 minutes on the dot. And
Outstanding. Thank you, Ashley. That was excellent. Thank you. I feel like I just drank from a fire hose. An expensive one for tax. But any questions from council members for Ashley? Thank you. That was an excellent presentation. Director Cooley? Yes, please.
Going back to, page 19 on the slides. On the homeowner's tax exemption, you have a note here, possible constitutional violation. Can you, do you know what that might be? I mean, it seems to me a lot of these, if we're talking, the 16.6 violation of, providing.
I think until they get the first ballot initiative passed, where they separate residential and can treat that class on its own, that's where it might violate. And that's, LSO had flagged it.
Okay.
So until that initial ballot initiative where they pull residential out and they can do whatever they want with residential differently than that, because they're all tied
So it takes
together.
that initial, okay, so it's in steps. Gotcha.
So until that initiative passes,
Yeah,
this is like a follow-up bill to that.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Tammy?
Actually, when you say ballot initiative, is that a constitutional amendment? Or is it a
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's gonna be two things on, there's a ballot initiative to get on the ballot. And a reporter hung me up, and I was thinking only in the one that to amend the Constitution, but that has to be balloted upon. And so that's what's going on right now outside the legislature, and we're calling that the ballot initiative. There is a constitutional amendment that has already gone through the legislative process and will be on the ballot in 2024, this time next year. And a reporter had gotten those confused, so I'm like, I better start explaining.
I think that the way the Constitution's written, like you said, they can't separate residential and commercial. They have to treat them the same in industrial, or maybe industrial's in a
Well,
separate
they
class.
can only
but-
be within a certain spread.
Yeah.
And well, and commercials in with residential, and then there's a point spread. There's a lot of ties. That if they pull out residential, they can do a lot of different things to it. But if you go back to that piece of pie, I mean, even before our high assessment ratios, residential is a big piece of that property tax. So if they start treating it differently, our concern is, okay, that's fine. We understand that this is a situational problem for 5 out of 23 of our counties. But you start lowering the tax, that's another thing in here. You start lowering the tax and mills on Niobrara County, that's a lot different than Natrona County or Sublette County. For example, in this book, you can look at the value of a mill. And we'll just go back to picking on Niobrara. And 1 mill equals $150,000, where in Campbell County, 1 mill generates $4.5 million. So, residential is just a small piece of the pie, and I show what those pies are per county. in the back of this book, you can see in Campbell, if they are, trying to make it as visual and the stick figure as possible. But, you know, this is all mineral wealth. So when you're cutting this small little pie of residential, that's this little sliver here, it doesn't really go to their county services. But then if you go to Niobrara, it's like the whole pie. So you cut them in half. So no county's created equal. I mean, the sales taxes are all different in every county. You know, they're, you know, what each county decides to levy on with special districts. We have over 800 special districts. I could go off for hours about special districts. They leverage about $1 billion a year in revenue. And that's different per county, depending on where you live. Your tax bill is different. So that's why just a peanut butter, like what's good for one is good for all in property tax. There'll be consequences.
So we wanted Ashley to come here to share with us. I mean, we're obviously, there's a lot of leaders within the industries around the state in this room. And so it's good to get this kind of perspective. And there's workforce implication to it. And so that's why we thought it was worthwhile. But Ashley, is there, obviously income taxes affects workforce, personal income tax. Is there, what's new in that space? What is the conversation in the personal income tax space?
That is a recommendation of Tax Reform 2000. And when we're looking at cornerstones, it's, you know, justified, you can question right now if it's justified yet. And it will eventually be justified if we get pushed against that wall, right? But it does check the rest. It's equitable, it's stable, it's transparent, you know, exactly what you're being taxed on. Nobody likes it, but including myself. But it is a fair tax. And, you know, you start robbing Peter to pay Paul. You know, we only have so much surplus to pay those bills for so long. And so there's two choices. We're going to either really cut, which we just all went through that. We can go back down that road. I think we run a pretty lean and efficient government. Of course, there's always room to, you know, improve, but so they can look at cutting, and then they can look at raising revenue, and eventually, you know, things will cycle back out. And when they look at raising revenue, which if you haven't read The Paradox of Plenty by Governor Dave Friedenthal, we've been on this hamster wheel for 100 years. I mean, I go back through my archives, it's the same fight every 20 years. I just blow it off. It's the same thing. So we'll be back in tax fights again, eventually. And so you're just they're gonna hamstring for future legislators that are gonna have to make hard decisions on revenues. So that's just, what's the trade-off? I've asked people I've been talking to, like, just pencil out what a mill costs you on your bill. I'm more than happy to help you figure that out. And then, okay, what do you want to cut? Do you want to cut your roads? Do you want to cut your schools? Do you want to cut local governments? Do you want to cut your community colleges? I mean, all of them operate pretty efficiently, so.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, thoughts from the council? Come on, Jim. You're biting your tongue. You've got a lot you want to say.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah.
And I see and you can't say blowing it or wasting it if we don't spend it. You guys take it away from us and take it to other counties. But some of the things we do, wow.
Yeah, you guys have done a lot. I just was there on a tour, and it's your rec center is amazing.
In the Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, but yeah, that's all I have to say.
But that's
I pay a lot of taxes.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
Yeah, it's mineral wealth. And we support business, like businesses mainly of all sorts are our members. Nobody likes taxes, you know.
But you know, one thing in Campbell County, it goes to vote. We voted in an additional
That's
mill
right.
levy for the college. We have that $250 million new Camplex facility. We're gonna have indoors, and I know it's gonna get voted in. And those of us that have to pay that extra mill levy, it hurts, but you know what? I want it to be there.
Right. Well, and that's the neat thing about some neat parts about our tax structure is that you guys have decided to say, yes, tax us.
But we're tired of it.
But you feel good where it goes, you know? Sure.
Well, and one good thing about it during the bad times, everybody did realize that Campbell County supports the state.
Oh,
So
yeah.
when the oil and gas and the coal, everything kind of went down, everybody's like, okay, you know what? We're sorry for always making Campbell County jokes. And
Yeah.
We still make them. We still make them.
Big friend.
Representative Berger, you had a question?
Oh, there's my.
I just had a quick comment, just one thing from our side, and when some of our thoughts in especially property taxes. the things that you saw were some short-term quick fixes. If I don't even know if I want to call them a quick fix, but they wouldn't last long. The ballot initiative is, you can look at as more of a long-term fix when you change that to change the Constitution so we can do some long-term things with property tax and make them more equitable.
The constitutional amendment that's already passed, right?
That's already passed to be put on the ballot, that the legislature passed to be put on the ballot initiative.
And Representative Berger's a great example, and could probably highlight, it takes a long time to turn the ship on property tax.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. The quickest thing.
Shifting the pendulum is what we're trying to do on property tax. And we want to make sure we do it right. Every legislator does that. We want to make sure that's right. And we are doing a lot of short-term stuff. Revenues come up with some great ideas. And we want to help everybody.
And he brought up the good point of the short term versus the long term. The property tax refund, you guys voted on that, and that was, done at the end of March, and people were able to apply at the beginning of May. If you do the ballot initiative, which is the long-term structure conversation and the long game that he's talking about, that's going to take 4 to 5 years for us to feel in our pocketbooks. So a lot of people just voted down the property tax refund because it was this or that. No, you can have it all. So that's something to remember when you're talking to your legislator is, what's immediate relief? Because I've gone to a lot of these town halls and they're not fun. They're not fun.
And I remember in Evanston when we were flush with minerals, and we're sucking them dry here in Evanston, but our community, we voted a lot of community buildings, a rec center, and back in the late 80s, early 80s and late 80s, and we're thankful for those at those times. And when times get tight, we don't get to pass those. So a lot of times as a coach and as a teacher, I am jealous of and proud of what Campbell County's doing. Those are some wonderful facilities, and I'm excited for those residents up there. It's amazing stuff. And you guys affect the entire state. Kids and people from Evanston go up to Gillette to use those facilities, and it's awesome. It's worth it. So we appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. No, thank you, Representative Berger. Any other thoughts, comments, questions before we let Ashley go?
We are so lucky to have someone like Ashley in our state who understands this and can explain it, in terms we can all understand. So thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you. And by the way, reminder, the presentation is on Onboard. It's in our software. The full presentation's out there. And so there's some great stuff to reference. If you want to take a look at that, we do have a copy of it. So thank you, Ashley. Thanks for sharing.
Feel free to contact me offline if you have any other questions, or I can help clarify anything, because I know I ran through that, but you guys got a
Super
lot to do.
informative.
Yep.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for having
much.
me.
Thank you.
Great job, Ashley.
In 21 minutes fast. So very good. So again, reminder, we do have a tour scheduled at Wild Gear, WYLD Gear here in Casper. The tour starts at 4:15. I urge you to come over, attend. We'll be there to kind of learn a little bit about their operation, wave the flag for workforce, and get more opportunity for you guys just to kind of network with one another, as well as this local business. We do have the dinner again at 6 o'clock. Again, everyone in the room is welcome to attend. I think that's it. Director Cooley, anything else? No. Jennifer, anything else? No. What's the proper Robert's Rule of Order thing where we just adjourn, but we're not really? We're going to recess. I can't even spell that. How many C's or S's are in that? We are going to recess for the evening. We'll reconvene here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. 8:30 a.m. You get 30 extra minutes of sleep. And have a wonderful evening. Thank you all. Is the room secure?